All right. Hi, folks. My name's Eddie Smith. I've lived in Athens Township for 10 years now, 5 of those years living in the Plains, and I am truly thrilled to be here tonight sharing with you the inspirations, the motivations, and the issues that have me up here tonight running for Athens Township Trustee. You know, Athens Township is a really special place to me. It's the place where I became an adult. It's the place where I met the love of my life. And I am so excited to be up here with these two gentlemen discussing the issues and the opportunities we have available to improve this township and the quality of life for everyone in it. You know, a big theme I'm going to be talking about tonight throughout all of my issues is the potential for what a township government can do that has the budget of Athens Township. You know, the Athens Township government has more funding to work with than any other township in Athens County. If you looked at one figure on this, the Athens Township Road Fund has 5 times the amount of money to spend per linear mile of road than what the Athens County-wide road fund has available. That's right. We are truly in a very fortunate position as a township government. And I believe with that position and with that funding comes certain responsibilities. Responsibilities to start addressing issues beyond patching roads, mowing cemeteries. I have spoken to the fellow citizens of our township, and I have been impressed and inspired by what other township governments in Ohio with our budget have accomplished in their communities, with their successes on addressing issues like rundown and abandoned housing, dealing with employment and economic development, and even addressing drug addiction, crime, and safety in the unincorporated parts of their township. What I'm trying to say here tonight is I am here running as an Athens Township Trustee because I believe that township governments with our budget have the potential for great leadership on these issues and many others that I am passionate about and that I know that everyone in our township is concerned about. Again, I couldn't be more excited to be here tonight. I'm thrilled to be up here with these two gentlemen, and I'm looking forward to a great debate. I want to thank very quickly everyone for coming out. I want to thank the League for putting this event on. They really do a lot of hard work to help the public understand the issues and understand the candidates. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you, Eddie. And now we turn to Brian Baker.
Just real quick, Brian Baker, I'm 48. I'm born and raised in Athens. I grew up a block away from here on Hudson Avenue. My mother still lives there. I love this place. My wife of 17 years, we have 4 kids, 3 grandkids. This is important to me. You know, I graduated Athens High School in '88. I went right to work. I worked for 14 and a half years before TS Trim shut down. Shortly after that, I got a job at the county engineer's office. Been there for 13 years, serving the public. I really care about what we do in Athens Township. I live here, I love it, and that's why I'm running. Thank you.
Thank you. And now we'll turn to Steve Pearson.
All right. Just like you guys, I think I'm going to stay seated right here, right now. The first thing I want to do is apologize. You can tell I'm not used to wearing a tie very often, and this perspiration is not going to affect my ability to project to you and explain to you why these last 4 years that I've been able to serve as an Athens Township Trustee have been some of the most enjoyable and fulfilling of the 23 years I spent in public service in Athens County. I came here in 1992 as now a 37-year member of Carpenters Local 200 to construct the Cornwall addition on O'Bleness Hospital, where now it seems I go pretty regularly to see my cardiologist. Mayor Hendricker hired me in 1994 to be the Director of Code Enforcement for the City of Athens. I worked for her for 2 years and then served 12 years under Mayor Abel, which was very fulfilling, to be honest with you, with my construction background, to see the development, especially of East State Street and some of the student apartment complexes. I know some people think those are great investments in the community, some think they're not quite as good. But I was a part of that. To be real honest with you, it's kind of funny. When I came here, I grew up in Columbus. I went to Ohio State University. When I came here, there were no 4-lane roads in this city. The only 4-lane road was out by Dairy Queen on Columbus Road. And the sign regulations you could have larger signs on 4-lane highways. There weren't any 4-lane highways. So that was all kind of interesting watching East State Street develop. Worked for Mayor Weil for 6 months, and then I've just recently finished 9 years of service as the Assistant Service Safety Director and Director of Code Enforcement in Nelsonville, which is a completely different challenge and a completely different world, let me tell you, between this community and Nelsonville. So there have been a variety of things that I've seen in this county. I've been able to, working through the Athens County Regional Planning Commission, I've been a 21-year member of that. I'm currently the Secretary of the Regional Planning Commission. So I've had a lot of experience with other people in the community. As a matter of fact, Chris Nisley, I saw her here a little while ago. We were in the 2008 Leadership Athens County class together, and just an amazing opportunity to network. And in such a small county, I think the population is only about 56,000. It's pretty easy to only be 2 or 3 people removed, from knowing everyone. And I know quite a few of you here in this room tonight. So I appreciate what the League of Women Voters is doing tonight for us to be able to present what our views are on some things. I'm really looking forward to giving you some information about what the township does now and what I believe the potential is for the township to achieve here in the future. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Welcome, Sarah. Thank you for coming. Sarah Brumfield of the Athens Messenger. We'll let you. You're the only one who gets a hand clap this evening.
Well,
and just to say, the audience probably knows we do not clap when the candidates speak. And but when Sarah arrives, she put herself out. Thanks, and you may relax a while. We have a flood of questions because we invited them. So we'll see you for some questions where you can relax and listen for a little while instead.
All right.
And so for the first question, we will go in the same order in which you've just spoken, and this will be 1.5 minute answers. And so here's the first question, and Eddie Smith, you'll be with that. What do you think is the most important job for a township trustee to do while in office?
What is the most important job for a township trustee to do while in office? Well, if we took a look at Athens County and the whole population, near 65,000 people, nearly half of them live in one township. They live in Athens Township, a 6-mile by 6-mile plot of land right in the center of Athens County. And 10,000 of those people live in the unincorporated part of that township. 3,500 of them live in a community called the Plains. It's the largest unincorporated community in all of southeast Ohio. So what should a township trustee do? The township trustees are the local government for people who live in the unincorporated space of the township. It is their job to ensure that people have sufficient public safety services, they have fire protection, that the volunteer fire departments are well funded, that they also have police protection, that the sheriff's department or constables, if there are township constables appointed, are able to respond. And they're also there to make sure that economic development and other quality of life issues take off and flourish within the township. We have so many issues here for the job of township trustee. Countless. I have a dozen here on this one page, and they don't even describe everything that a township trustee can do within their job, the potential of a trustee. We can start addressing issues like rundown and abandoned housing in this township. We can start addressing employment in this township. Really, the job of a township trustee is in a lot of ways like a
for the rest out there. That kind of piggybacks too on what I think another important thing is too, and that's to be sensitive to what's available countywide, all the government services, we all work together, and also to be responsive to what citizens want. Obviously, residents of the city who do vote for us, but we don't really do too much for them, have different needs than people out in the rural and the unincorporated area. So I hope to get some more statistics, some information as the questions go along on that about the difference between city residents having our responsibility toward them and then responsibility toward people out in the countryside.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to another question, and let me just note that if you'd like to have me repeat the question anytime, feel free to ask. And just because we're switching here, Brian, you'll address this one first.
Okay.
Then Steve, then Eddie. Okay, so the question is, what do you think is the biggest misconception about the role of a township trustee? Brian?
I think that we just do road work. You know, there's a lot involved in the township. Like I said, we're in charge of the Plains Fire Department. It's funded well. We actually, what do we do here? We were funded so well that we did not collect on a tax levy last year, and we will let a 1 mil levy resolve. So we're not abusing our powers. We're doing what's best for the citizens. We cemetery management, mow and take care of the cemeteries. Parks and Rec. We have a park in the Plains that we maintain, and it's used a lot. People don't realize that kind of work goes on in our township. It does.
Thank you.
The question was the biggest misconception?
What do you think? What do you think is the biggest misconception about the role of a township trustee?
I think the biggest misconception is that people think that we can legislate, and we don't have legislative authority. We're bound by state statute as to what we can and can't do, what our responsibilities are, and the extent of that. We can't step outside those boundaries. For example, though, unless we have something called limited home rule, which we can essentially function, we can self-govern. But that takes either 8% of the people who voted in the last governor's election that are residents to petition the trustees to do that, place it on the ballot, and then citizens would vote for it. Just for example, like out at Numberfest, people were calling the trustees and saying, can't you do anything about noise? Well, we can't legislate noise. We have to just go by state statute, the general public nuisance, disturbing the peace kind of regulations, and the sheriff is our police department. I'll get into that maybe a little later too, about formation of police districts, because I want you to know what the trustees have been doing with Sheriff Rodney Smith and looking into some of the challenges, especially that the Plains has. 3,000 people in an unincorporated area with essentially no local government, but yet plenty of criminals, plenty of crime, same problems that are going on all over the county. So we do have a plan. We're working with the county sheriff, and I'll elaborate on that, probably get that in on another question. So.
Thank you. Eddie?
I believe that the biggest misconception about what township trustees should be doing ties back to Steve Pearson's answer on the last question. And it's very much connected to what is the most important job for a township trustee. I could not disagree more that the most important job for a township trustee is road maintenance. Ask yourself, what's the most important job for a city government? Is it road maintenance? Or are there other services, public value that a city government provides that might perhaps be more important than patching roads? I believe that because the township trustees are the local government for folks who live in the unincorporated parts of this township, it is challenging to prioritize roads above things like attracting new businesses to a community, trying to create employment opportunities for the unemployed, trying to put bike lanes in so people don't get hit by cars anymore on Connet Road, trying to reduce crime, like Steve Pearson said. There's an entire host of issues that a township government has the responsibility and the duty to perform, and I think the biggest misconception is at the top of that list is road maintenance.
Thank you. Now we'll turn to the next question, and the order will be Steve, Eddie, and Brian. If elected, how do you plan to address zoning in Athens Township?
Well, having made a living off zoning and land use regulations for 23 years in public service, you would think that I would think that that was a high priority. And actually, I campaigned on that 4 years ago, that I was available to citizens of the unincorporated area to adopt limited home rule for the township and zoning. after I was elected, I was pretty much taken off in the corner by quite a few constituents and told that that's something that I shouldn't concern myself about. If the majority of citizens wanted that, they would approach us to do that. And so at our trustee meetings, when we've had situations come up like that, that's generally our response. Well, I want to be receptive to what the citizens want. Now, it's come up to the difference between, and being in a land use administrator for so long in two different jurisdictions, one under a charter form of government, one under a statutory form of government. So I'm going to hold this little exhibit up here. Here's Athens Township right here, and you can see how much of it is actually in the city, area-wise. Only 0.51% of your property tax, and property taxes are 75% of what we use as our budget. Only 0.55% of your tax dollars in the city go toward township programs, whatever program that gets prioritized. It's about 10.6% of all real estate collected taxes, property taxes, in the unincorporated area. So hopefully I'll get into this a little more too and get into some of these numbers about distribution of allocation of funds.
Thank you. Eddie?
Zoning's one of these issues that comes with a lot of benefits, but it also comes with some drawbacks. And if you look actually at a map of Ohio, everything that's north of Interstate 70 that cuts east to west across Ohio, and everything that's west of 71 that comes from Columbus on downward to Cincinnati, all the other 3/4 of Ohio are actually zoned in all of the unincorporated rural spaces. Southeast Ohio is actually quite unique in this way. And there are definitely benefits to having unincorporated areas zoned. There are, again, also drawbacks. How I would approach zoning, I believe that was the question, if I was a township trustee, is to let the voters decide. If voters wanted to place this issue on the ballot, I believe that's the fairest way to address it. There are definitely a host of people who live in the unincorporated part of this township because they do not want to have zoning and other government issues like these involved in their lives. There are also a host of people who do not live there by choice, but who live there by circumstance, and we do not know what they want. Perhaps they do want zoning. The fairest way to resolve this, I believe, is a democratic way, not for the trustees to tell people you're not getting zoning, but to let the citizens of the township tell us if they want zoning.
Thank you. Brian?
I've been there for 2 years, and I've never heard this brought to our attention. If it was needed or wanted, they would come to our meetings. I'm out and about all the time. And if they don't want it, you don't make it. I mean, it's not our decision, it's their decision. And the time comes and they want to be zoned, I believe, they'll come to us and they'll have that right. They can put it on the ballot and they can decide. I just think government's getting too big and people that don't want zoned live in these areas. And then if we zone the plains, there's extra cost involved. What about the rest of the township? I just don't think that zoning is wanted in the plains.
Thank you. Sarah, are you ready with a question or two, or shall we proceed with the wisdom of the audience?
Thank you for being here. Sorry I was late. Let's see. If there was one issue that you would like to improve upon as a trustee, what would it be?
Sounds up for me.
Eddie, yes. Eddie, Brian, and Steve in this order.
I'm trying to think of a good political answer to this. My one issue is actually 6 issues, and there are so many. But one issue I do want to talk about tonight, where we have so much potential, there is not a lot of flat developable land in Athens County that's not in a floodplain. If you looked at that same map that Steve Pearson showed you here, we're sitting on a gold mine of real estate called the Plains. It's 1,500 acres of flat developable land that's elevated and geographically centered in Athens County, right along the 33 corridor, and just a couple miles from Athens City. It has so much potential for attracting retail development, for becoming a small bedroom community to Athens City, and we are squandering that land use opportunity, in my opinion. I think the township trustees have a role in attracting new businesses to this township. trying to put our best foot forward and show them areas like the Plains. I have personally reached out to retail corporations, to the real estate and development departments of Target, of Meijer, of Giant Eagle, and I am constantly letting them know we have this opportunity here in the Plains, and if I'm elected as township trustee, I'm willing to look into every economic development tool we have available at our disposal so we can start bringing some new business into this township.
Thank you. Brian?
With that being said, there is a lot of developable land in the Plains. We don't own it. If people want to bring business to the Plains, they will. If we have a good road system, safe, smooth, safe roads, they'll come. It's not up to us to buy land and develop it. My money comes from the vehicle license plate tax, road and bridge, gasoline. That's what these people are paying for, and that's what I'm going to give them. I do not believe that we have any business in developing property. Now, something I would like to accomplish is move our township garage. We're right across from fairgrounds. We're on like an acre and a half. We've outgrown it. And if we move out, that land is very valuable and somebody will move in. That's how I'm going to bring business, not by doing something we shouldn't.
Steve?
Just to remind me, the question was the number one issue, right?
The one issue you would improve, that you would like to improve upon.
Oh, okay. One issue that I think I'd like to improve upon is actually being dealt with right now in two different respects, and it has to do with sewage treatment. We've been held up as trustees in doing some paving and other improvement projects in the Athens to Albany corridor because of the negotiations with the commissioners and the city. That's been identified as a growth corridor, but yet if there's not sewer available, no business is going to come there. On the flip side, the commissioners have sewage treatment facilities on the Plains, but I'll do another little visual for you here. A lot of the Plains is in Dover Township. So we have development, we have cooperating political partners we have to deal with anything for police protection, for any kind of economic development projects. You can see from that right there that the Plains, when you say the Plains, that's not Athens Township completely. It's about 1/2 of the population, to be real honest with you. I've got the exact numbers here. 3,080 people in the Plains, 3,559 in the rest of the township. However, there's about, the census says about 1,300 households on the Plains, but if you've looked at what's been going on with the sewer project, there are about 1,100 single-family homes or residential housing units in that direction. So you can see that both places have opportunity, but what really drives it, what my big issue is public health and safety related to sewage disposal. I think that's the biggest challenge. That'll have to do with our road projects. And
I'll have to break you in here since I didn't the last time. Well, we'll just demonstrate that, well, we're harsh with our time with us. Our time's valuable.
I'm looking at the cards and trying to make eye contact too. So.
Okay, for the next question, it'll be Brian, Steve, and Eddie. And if Sarah, if you have one, we'll go with that. But we have playing with the audience. If you have one, go ahead.
I guess one question, and I'm sorry I missed your opening statements, but why do you want this job? What prompted you to want to be a township trustee?
I was first, right? Well, I was born and raised here, and I've worked all my life here. And 13 years ago, I got a job at the Athens County Engineers, and I was around all these townships and learned about the process. And I saw Athens Township and thought I could make some improvements towards the roads. I got into this not knowing all this other stuff, but I'm learning. And I just thought I could make a difference because I live here and I love it. And that's why I ran.
Okay, Steve?
Same question. I'd mentioned that I have a lot of years of public service, that being my employment, how I made a living, how I supported myself. But being a member of this community, I found myself doing a lot of volunteer things too. To be kind of honest with you, township trustee is not the highest paying job around. It's not necessarily a full-time job. You have to have a heart to want to do it. I've been involved in a lot of things in this community. I actually chair the Board of Directors, United Seniors of Athens County right now. I'm a member of the Athens Village Board of Directors. I'm past president of Athens Civitan Club, and it's hard to get people to volunteer to do things these days. Commissioner Schmiel can tell you that's why one of the reasons he has a community improvement challenge. To get communities involved again, to get people to volunteer. And you have to want to be a township trustee if you want to do a good job. You can just lay back and pave roads and clean ditches. It's a very important thing. But I see it just as another way, another opportunity to be involved in the community, to meet people, to understand what their needs and aspirations might be, and then how as their elected official, how am I able to help them implement those things that they want to see happen in their lives? So.
Yes, Sarah. My biggest motivations for getting out here and running for Athens Township Trustee are that I believe that township governments that have our budget and our resources have the potential for incredible leadership on a whole range of issues that are way bigger than roads and cemeteries. And just a little bit here to answer your question and also respond to Brian Baker here. This potential for what township trustees can do does actually include economic development. The state of Ohio government would disagree with Brian Baker because the state of Ohio government, state law, allows township trustees to create special improvement districts to fund certain public projects, allows them to create tax increment financing districts, allows township trustees to create downtown redevelopment districts. There are a host of economic development tools that the state of Ohio has said, you know what's a good idea? Let's let the township trustees also provide some of the same services that another local government, such as a city government, would provide to people in an incorporated community. That's why I'm getting out here and running, to address many of these misconceptions and to start bringing some best practices to Athens Township.
Thank you. For the next question, the order will be Steve, Eddie, Brian, and here we go. Does the township have a set timetable for repaving roads and bridges, or is it a matter of condition and money?
Okay, well there's two different answers to that, and just to give you an example, the main roads through the township, say Route 682, Route 56 West Union Street, and Radford Road, are all either county or state highways. So those aren't even roadways that the township is responsible for. That being said, though, let me back up a little bit. I want to talk about a budget here for just a second. $2.23 million is our township budget. It is a very large budget. Most of that comes from property tax. 75% of that comes from property tax. However, road paving and road maintenance, we do have a plan for that. The trustees put their heads together, usually in the wintertime. We come up with a list of things, of areas that we want to pave or chip and seal. You might have seen the controversy on chip and seal in Armitage Road here lately. But, for example, recently in our paving scenario this year, we paved New Rad subdivision and Estate subdivision. And we did a little bit of work out by the country club. We're going to pave Leota and Tammy next year. So there is a plan, there is a method to the madness in what we do, and we try to extend those dollars as far as we can. We have, Brian knows more exact numbers on that, I think 56 miles of road to maintain. So different costs.
Time.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Thank you. Okay, Eddie.
I think Steve probably gave a sufficient answer for that, and I want to take this time to let you know what I do bring to the table as a candidate for this seat and what I do not, and just be completely transparent about that. I am not an engineer. I have no background at all in road engineering or construction, and that is something that both of these gentlemen and Ted both know a lot more about than I do. I will say that is the beauty of institutions like boards of trustees, is that they have diversity. The members who constitute a board bring specialties, different areas of expertise. So in my opinion, we do not need 3 road experts or 3 road engineers on a board of township trustees, and it's perhaps to the benefit of the township to have certain trustees who focus on things like economic development and getting jobs here in this township. So I don't actually know how the schedule of roads is determined in the township. I'm not privy to that, not working in the township, but yeah, I'm happy to work on many other things besides roads.
Thank you. Brian?
Well, like Steve said, we do have a plan for paving, and we follow it year by year. We're on a 5-year cycle with our chip seal program. Once every 5 years, your road should be chip sealed. Now, I know we have a large budget, but to pave 1 mile of road that's continuous is $114,000. And if you drive around and look at our roads and see how much of it is paved, you'll understand where our money goes. Now we do probably around $200,000 to $250,000 per year chip seal, and we can do that ourselves in-house. That's just an example of how expensive this road work is. And if we're going to do other things, it's going to cost the taxpayers more money. We just can't afford to maintain the roads like we currently do and do some of the other things that Eddie wants to do without, putting a levy on, more taxes. So it's up to the people to decide what's important in this job.
Thank you. Let's see, I think we're ready for another question then, and so the order will be Eddie, Brian, and Steve. What is your view concerning abandoned properties throughout the township and creating a land bank to recover property taxes?
I think the township government has an extraordinary role to play in getting a land bank started in Athens County. If you've been to any of the county commissioners' meetings lately, there is ongoing discussion both from the commissioners and the treasurer about what we're going to do to address the large number of properties in this county that are run down, abandoned, and that also have delinquent taxes and that are hurting our schools. I believe this is not just a county level issue, nor something that only county officials should be involved in. The township should have a role. And, if they've listened to the discussions, there are consultants who can help get a land bank started. There are startup costs for hiring these consultants and getting these land banks going. I believe the township government should chip in on the startup costs to start a land bank. We can absolutely afford this. If you look, I have here from the county auditor, the entire certified revenues for our entire township. We have over $1 million in carried forward from last year. We can easily afford to chip in a few $1,000s to help the county commissioners and to help the other townships afford to bring a land bank consultant here so we can get this going.
Thank you. Brian?
I've only been in there for 2 years, and we've dealt with this issue. We've torn down a house. We've had a house for a controlled burn. If there's something in our township, we deal with it. Between the township, the health department, and the sheriff's department, there's nothing we can't do. We are getting it done. I don't see the problem that Eddie's seeing. And, if we're asked for help, and it's going to benefit our township, and we have the money, I'd be more than happy to. But as of right now, I can see that we're getting things done.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah. In my employment experience, I've had quite a few dealings with abandoned and tax delinquent properties. Working in Nelsonville, there are 150 dilapidated, uninhabited structures there. Quite a dream because most of those don't pay taxes either. So a land bank, now it's created by a county and not a township, so it would be a county effort to do that. When I came to work for the township 4 years ago, one of the first things I did was have a garage, a trailer, and a burned out house torn down on the plains because the neighbors came in and complained about it. You have to understand, there's no money available for that. If you ask someone to do it and they don't, it's going to cost you upwards of $10,000 to clean off a property, and you can't do that too many times and not exhaust your carryovers in your general fund. Even for the And I've dealt with Javon Kilvenrick and Bill Bias as treasurers, looking into land banks and collecting back taxes that were due. It costs about $800 per foreclosure for the county to foreclose on a tax delinquent property. There's only so many $800 increments that can be budgeted by the commissioners to do that. So a land bank is another opportunity. I'm glad there's discussions about that. But on the level I've been dealing with it, and Chris Nisley knows too, I've had a house torn down or got people to tear it down up on Hooper Road. So that's one of the things I've been able to get involved in, get a project started like that, and knowing the system, knowing the documentation, the legal process that's necessary. I've been into that already. Like up to my knees.
Thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next question, and it'll be Brian, Steve, and Eddie. How will you actively address the township's energy needs?
I don't know why that falls on our responsibility. You know, I've looked into, we have 35 streetlights in the Plains. I've looked into changing them over to solar or different lighting. It's just not cost effective right now. I mean, to change one light, it would cost us $1,000. And I think we would better serve changing those lights out as they need. But other than that, I don't have an answer for you.
Thank you. Steve?
I'm not sure if the question is talking about...
I'll read it again. How will you actively address the township's energy needs?
Okay, so I'm guessing that's the township and not the citizens' needs. Whenever we were looking at energy efficiency, I provided Chris and the SOPEC organization with the utility bills for the township. We pay for all the street lights on Route 682, all the street lights on Conant Road. We have energy bills for the firehouse, the community center, and for the township garage. So I was actively working with available partners in the area for that. We're not a member of the aggregation for electric. I don't believe we get our electric separately. I wish we would look into that to join SOPEC and to reduce those energy costs. That's on a township level, and that's why I ask about personally, because I think choices in personal energy, the way you purchase energy, the way you consume energy is a personal choice. If you want to opt, to belong to a cooperative, I think that's fine. If you don't, I think it's fine. If you want to negotiate those kinds of things on your own. It's obviously something that is a great job producer too. And so that's another reason to look at alternative forms of energy. That's a whole other separate discussion, that energy production, that I don't really think trustees need to get too involved in. It's a lot bigger picture. So
thank you.
That's the end of that.
Eddie?
Yeah, so I didn't have a chance to talk about my professional role in the community. I serve as the executive director of the Southeast Ohio Public Energy Council, which is a mouthful, and so we call it SOPEC for short. And SOPEC manages a number of programs that help this community save money on electric utility bills and also try to be more sustainable in other ways. Steve Pearson did reach out with copies of the utility bills for the township government, and one of the programs that we offer at SOPEC is what's called the Mercantile Program. It's a pool of local government accounts, municipal accounts that belong to these local governments, and we've bundled them all into this one pool that we put out to bid. We had 8 suppliers bidding on it, and we returned a price for every one of these local governments of $49.17 per megawatt hour. And that may not mean a lot if you don't have a relative comparison, but that was a savings of 23% off of what these local governments were paying with the default utility rate. We saved one government $7,000 on just one single electric utility bill, one account that they had, and that was the Village of Chansey. We can do the same thing for this township. We can start getting better rates for all of our local governments, including townships. And in the last 30 seconds I have here, I want to talk about one other issue for energy management for townships. Townships also contract out other organizations, such as fire departments. And fire departments in this township, I believe, need to be more concerned about sustainability and more concerned about energy conservation. We should do something at the township level to make sure energy management is happening through all flows of public dollars from our government.
Thank you. Now to turn to the next question, it'll be Steve, Eddie, and Brian in that order. What do you think about the proposed sewer expansion for US Route 50, Radford Road, State Route 56?
What do I think about it? Right now, what I think is it's really affecting our paving planning. I looked at some old newspaper articles, and I was here 4 years ago, and one of the things that I was discussing at this same very forum was the sewer extension, and that was 4 years ago. So, paving-wise, we've been kind of spinning our wheels. Much of the improvements, and some of those have been refined, and the latest plans were presented at the community center. But I believe it's only about a quarter of the sewer lines are going to go in in easements off the public right-of-way. The rest of those, about 75%, will actually tear up the driving surface of the roads. Now, the commissioners in the project, whoever gets the contract work, will put the roads back exactly, they say exactly the way they were. We'll be taking a lot of videotape on that to make sure that the condition was before they get started. It's very important, though. I think the city wants to help address a current existing health and safety problem out in that area. No one disputes that isn't the main concern. The main thing we ought to be, concerned about health and safety and the welfare of the citizens out there. However, I do have some concern about the ability to expand sewage treatment facilities. Eddie's talking about going to the plains. The county has a sewage treatment plant there. The development corridor, though, to Albany and 2 hours to Cincinnati is going to be dictated by whatever the city allows in as sewage. So it's kind of some thoughts on the sewage expansion.
Thank you. Eddie?
I'm going to give two answers to this question. The first would be a trustee answer, and the second is my personal answer. Township trustees have no legal nor practical influence over this matter. And we also act as boards, and so individual opinions on this don't matter. It takes votes of a board to pass resolutions and to institute things. So officially as a township trustee, if I were elected, I would not have anything that I could affect on this and no public opinion on it. Personally, I am favorable of the sewer expansion project. I also applaud Steve for 4 years ago taking a position on this controversial issue. I think it is beneficial for the development of our township and our county, and it's been in every master planning document we've had along the way. I can see both sides of the issue from the household perspective, but personally, I think this is a good, sustainable step forward environmentally for Athens County.
Thank you. Brian?
I really don't have a lot to add. I do agree with the project. I think it's a good thing. My main concern, being the road guy, is I want our roads to be put back the way they were when they started. Like Steve said, we've had paving projects in the works in those territories for 2 years, and we can't do it because we're kind of waiting on the expansion. So I think we're going to go ahead and go forward with it, but as long as they put the roads back the way they were.
Thank you. So the next question will be Eddie, Brian, and Steve. And the Plains area has a lot of developable land. Will you support eminent domain as a tool to help develop this land?
Would I support eminent domain? So for those of you who aren't aware of eminent domain, local governments in the state of Ohio, including townships, have the legal authority to possess private property if they believe it serves a public purpose, and to compensate the landowner or property owner for the private property they took at fair market value or what's determined by a compensation by jury trial. I do not support the township doing this. I think this is interfering too much in the market and getting too involved in people's lives. We do have an issue in this market. The market is not working. I know Brian is saying we're getting it done. We're not. Property values in the plains are not rising. They're not even stagnating. They are falling year after year. Real estate is typically a store of wealth. It remains flat or it appreciates over time, and people who have made investments in the plains are losing out on the investments that they've made. So I support actively the government getting involved here and helping this real estate market getting back to where it should be, but no, we should not be legally repossessing people's property without their permission. That's going too far.
Thank you. And let's see, Brian, you're next.
One word. No. That's it. Shouldn't happen.
Okay. And then Steve?
Eminent domain is about the biggest hammer government has when it comes to being able to use personal property for public need. And this has been long ago than I really want to imagine. On East Broad Street in Columbus, when 270 was being constructed, I grew up in that area, and I served on a jury that had to determine the value of the land of a cemetery that they needed for the Broad Street on-ramp to 270 North. In those negotiations, up until the settlement, there was a settlement before we did it, there was a verdict. And it's a pretty tense situation. And so to think about personal property rights, the right to own property and use property and enjoy property versus when land is needed for the public interest, that's a real tough thing to think about, and it's not something that I would take lightly, nor would it would only be an extreme. I was involved with East State Street widening when that happened. We actually had to trade OU some land because there were investments in the city park where we couldn't diminish the size of the park, so we had to get land from OU to add to the park, to move the road south because we didn't want to infringe on the businesses on the north side. It wasn't eminent domain, but it could have gotten to that point. So that it's a last resort, and I can't really see very many situations where it would ever be needed.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, Brian, Steve, Eddie. Our township has a limited budget. Which should be a higher priority for transportation, bicyclists or motorists?
I am an avid bike rider. But what pays for the roads? It's your gasoline tax, it's your license plate fees, it's piggyback tax. I support bike riders, but no. Vehicles take priority.
Okay, and let's see, Steve, you're next.
I think the question
Surely.
kind of involved.
Our township has a limited budget.
Right.
Which should be a higher priority for the transportation, bicyclists or motorists?
Okay. I would say obviously motor vehicles would be the highest priority. However, that doesn't mean you might not want to take into consideration bicycles. Obviously, the city has a high priority in that. As a matter of fact, they're a designated bicycle-friendly community. However, out in the township, like I said before, you got to realize State Route 682, the main drag through the whole township, is a state route. So if you wanted, if you wanted a bicycle lane or some improvements for bicycles, you should approach ODOT for that. Same thing on State Route 56. On Radford Road, I can't imagine anybody wanting to ride a bike on Radford Road, but it's the main transportation corridor, and that's a county road. So you'd have to talk to Jeff Maiden, the engineer. There's very little opportunity on township roads for bicycling. Just the other day, if you kind of watched the newspaper, the city asked us to chip seal Armitage Road, and it created quite a controversy for people not being able to negotiate the impassable Radford Road number 7 stone that we put on there after a chip seal project. Bicycling is a good thing. Obviously, I'm not a real avid bicyclist. You can tell right now. I'm in my later stages here. My bicycling days are over. But I can appreciate people who do want to do that. And it's quite a thing when you have bicycles and cars trying to share the same road, especially when you have limited right-of-way and limited opportunity and actually jurisdiction even to address the situation.
Thank you. Eddie?
Yeah, right now we have a major issue in Athens Township. Again, we have half of the county's population living here in this one 6x6 mile area, and yet we do not have one single bike lane anywhere at all, anywhere in unincorporated Athens Township. Now, if you looked on Actually, let me first also talk about sidewalks, because sidewalks are tied right into the same issue. We have a huge issue with sidewalk development in this township. There's not a single sidewalk you can take if you were a student trying to walk to the Athens High School in the Plains. And now, where this becomes sort of an equity issue, a lot of the people who live out in the township, by choice or by circumstance, a lot of them do not have a personal automobile. They don't have the luxury of getting to and from Kroger, or to and from East State Street, or even in and out of the city by car. And their mode of transportation is often a bike or walking by foot. And we have had too many accidents in Athens Township. This past April, there was a boy who got hit on Connet Road, biking down Connet Road, had to be life flighted to the hospital. We have had other accidents in other parts of the township this same year. And what I think is necessary is the township government needs to adopt what's called a complete streets policy, which states that all users of public right-of-ways, whether you're a motorist or a cyclist or a pedestrian or a public transit rider, you all have equal rights to safety. And that's the step we need to go to here, because then it's not even really a budget issue. ODOT allows you to apply for very large grant funding for these types of improvements, and we need to make them happen. I'm going to use my one abuse here. We need to make them happen so that we can start putting in some bike lanes in Athens Township. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, for this next one, the order will be Steve, Eddie, and Brian. Now let me read this one twice before you, because it's structured a little differently from some. Fill in the blank. Most people may not agree with me about such and such, where the me, of course, is you, the candidate. Fill in the blank. Most people may not agree with me about blank, but this is very important, even though I may face challenges and backlash. Why don't I read that one more time, and then we'll have you go at it with Steve first. Fill in the blank. Most people may not agree with me about such and such, but this is very important, even though I may face challenges and backlash.
To be real honest with you, I wish through my mind right now I could list a whole series of people who have come to me and said that we don't agree on a certain issue, and I really can't think of that many that have come to me and expressed an opinion, about something I might be able to address as a trustee. The only thing that I can think of, and this goes back to one of the other questions I answered, was, and it kind of ties into zoning and land use regulations too. The trustees caught a lot of flack over Numberfest over the years because of the noise and the traffic. That was one where people did come to our meetings and wanted us to do something, especially residents in Turtle Run, which is inside the city. And actually, I'm just going to drop a name here. Paige Lost, Visitors Convention Bureau Director. She lives very close to that too, and she was really had me up in the corner one day. And but we're limited. Township trustees are limited by state statute. There's only certain things that we can do. Now, we can't adopt zoning. We can get it on the ballot. We can't adopt limited home rule. We could have our own police department. We could limit the number of people hauling trash on public streets. But those things all take dollars and they take expansion of government. So that's be kind of my answer to anybody's question they might have about our disagreement. How are you going to fund projects? That's a big concern.
Thank you. Eddie?
I think one area where the everyday voter or even members of this board may disagree with me, and I think this is an important area for us to invest our efforts as a board of trustees, but we need to start publishing the meeting minutes from township trustee meetings and board resolutions onto the township website. I know a lot of people may not view this as a high priority to check out what the township government did at their last Board of Trustees meeting, but this is critical to have a well-functioning democracy where people can hold the township government to account and they can see what the township government is doing for the citizens of the township. That would probably be the one issue I would bring up that people may disagree on me whether this is a priority, but I think it is essential for having a democratic Athens Township.
Thank you.
The question?
Read it again?
Yes,
Sure.
please.
Happy to. Fill in the blank. Most people may not agree with me about blank, but this is very important even though I may face challenges and backlash.
I think I'm pretty big on less government. I think we get money for certain things and we try to do too much. I think that I'm just not for more government. And I think there's some disagreements here, but I think that's one of them.
Thank you. Okay, I guess we're ready for another question then. And so this will be Eddie, Brian, and Steve. In what ways can trustees improve utility services in Athens Township?
All right, so I am take a break from energy because that's what I do all the time. And I want to talk about garbage, waste management, and recycling. So, for those of you who are not familiar with this, local governments, including township trustees, can establish waste management franchises. Currently in the Plains right now, we have 6 different garbage companies that come by and pick up people's trash every day of the week. I have a different truck every day of the week driving down my dead-end street in the Plains, picking up accounts along that streetway. We can start saving customers money today if we awarded the entire Athens Township franchise to one of these garbage collectors. And the fairest way to do it would be to use competition in a marketplace and allow them to bid and submit offers for what they would charge township residents to do this. Now, I believe the township government has certain, or that the township citizens have certain values that are important to them. I believe township citizens care about sustainability, and I would also want to select a waste management recycling company in a sustainable way. I have prepared a scoring guideline for exactly how we should go about selecting the best waste management company to deliver garbage services for people who live in this township. And we should not only balance the savings that people are going to receive from this, we should also include things that I believe Brian and Steve would think are important, like what's the median wage that this employer pays its garbage collectors? Or is there union representation amongst the employees of this company?
Thank you. Brian?
I understand what he's saying, but I'm about choice. And I think if we bid this out, I think a big company would probably get it. And then we're going to shut down all the little guys that pay for their license, that pay for their gas, and support what we do. I'm about choice, and I think Eddie said something about the issue about travel on the roads. If we build good roads, we don't have to worry about 7 trucks going up and down the road. But I'm about choice.
Thank you. Steve?
Yeah, this had to do in general about utility service, I think, but I'll go ahead and go on the garbage theme here. I actually drafted the bid specifications for the franchise trash hauling service in Nelsonville, so I'm intimately been involved in what it takes to select a individual dedicated garbage hauler. I was a little bit involved with that too when I worked for the city of Athens. One of the things that I worry about, Brian kind of mentioned this too, and what's happened, I'll just give you an example up in Nelsonville, is the big service provider, Rumpke's, been able to come in and underbid everybody. And so what that has done is it's cut out Athens Hocking Solid Waste District from being able to operate there, or local guys like Bateman over at Chansey, or Mr. Abdella, who has PDQ, that's a garbage service on the Plains, or Southern Ohio Disposal up in Logan. So there are good aspects to that, and there are detrimental aspects to it too. My experience has been that the big corporate companies can come in, underbid everyone, unless, like Eddie might have said, you build in performance standards that you want to see a certain amount of recycling going on. So it's a tricky situation, and right now the trustees are just kind of sitting back and waiting to see if a majority of citizens want to see that. If they do and they want us to bid it out and choose who their garbage service is going to be, that's fine. Until then, we're going to let the marketplace dictate.
Thank you. Okay, for the next question, Brian, Steve, and Eddie, and here it is. Townships like ours have limited financial options. Do you support allowing townships to have income taxes like cities and villages do?
I do not. I think it's up to the people, though. I mean, if you have a service, you're going to have to pay for it. I don't think that we can support some of these things without a levy. I just think that people are tired and they don't want to pay more taxes, and I'm not for that now.
Thank you. And Steve?
You know, if citizens would come to the trustees and say, we'd like to see you implement this program or that program, obviously there's got to be a way to fund that. Right now, I think a lot of government provides a lot of service to the residents of the township, and I'm just going to use the Plains as an example. The federal government provides a post office. The county commissioners provide sewage disposal, and there's a public library. There are things there. The state essentially provides a transportation corridor. So, from what I can see, citizens right now are satisfied with the level of government they have. If you would institute, if the Plains would incorporate, for example, or we would have limited home rule, there'd have to be like a township administrator, we'd have to have a city attorney, and when you start talking about increased government, increased layers of bureaucracy, you're talking about increased funding too. It would take an income tax probably. It would be one method to offset that, and obviously the city of Athens knows exactly how that works because that's their major source of revenue. So it's just a difference in what citizens want is their level of service from government, and then they take care of the rest of it themselves. They make personal choices and decide how they want to address the needs that they think they might have. So that's my position on that.
Thank you. Eddie?
Yeah, what's already been discussed here is exactly right. The township government receives 3/4 of its funding from property tax revenue, the remainder from things like the motor vehicle license tax and from gasoline tax. But I want to address what I think are a few fallacies here. We have more funding sources than just the ones we're talking about. There are government grants at the federal level and at the state level that we can be applying for. We can apply for CDBG funds, Community Development Block Grant funds, to make projects happen in this township, and we don't have to supply very much match funding at all to make that happen. It's like taking, if you do believe we have a limited budget, it's like taking a limited budget and multiplying it by applying for some of these grants. We could start building a community health center, a fitness center in the Plains, an addition onto the existing community center out there in the Plains, so that people who live in the Plains have somewhere to work out in the winter, and many of them not having vehicles and unable to travel to East State Street. I also want to take a quick moment here to address a previous statement. Part of the scoring that I believe is important if we were going to do a garbage franchise is a scoring component that looks at local ownership and operation. We have to support local, I completely agree with Brian, we need to support local companies that are trying to pick themselves up and enter this free market. And so a significant amount of the points that I would score within this scoring criteria are based on whether a company for a garbage franchise is located here in Athens County.
Thank you. Our order for the next one, Steve, Eddie, and Brian. Is there any potential to develop a plan to run the Athens City sewer system into the township?
There's been an ongoing plan for quite a few years. It's about to come to fruition, it looks like. The commissioners had to determine if the extension would be affordable, and it looks like those numbers have come in well. The increase, I believe, was 50% grant, 50% loan, which I think carried the day on the balance to make the project affordable. And so you do have that theoretical development expansion opportunity in that Athens to Albany corridor. Discussion about would business come to the Plains. To be real honest with you, I know Rich Castler, who is the operator of the sewer. He runs the water and sewer district for the county. I'm not sure what additional capacity there is on the Plains at the sewer plant. The majority of the water on the Plains actually comes from the city of Athens. You see those two water towers up there on the right-hand side across from Messenger? That water's in a dedicated line pump to the Plains. If it wasn't for that, though, LEAX has lines all over the place. The main driver on all economic development, to me, is the end of the sewer line in this area. It's not water. Water's everywhere. It's where's the end of that sewer line. Obviously, we can't just essentially dump like we used to out in the countryside. It's not good for the environment. It's not good for everybody's health. It's not something you want your community to be known for. So the end of that sewer line, it's very important where that's at and who can use the end of that line. It's a big topic of discussion, believe me, for the trustees.
Thank you. Eddie?
I think Steve just gave a sufficient answer for that, and I'm going to use my time to talk about another issue, improving safety and reducing crime in Athens Township. Again, if we look at Athens County population, we have half of the county's population living in Athens Township, and in that same area, if we look at Athens County, we have a county sheriff's department that has to cover 500 square miles of this county with only 3 to 6 deputies on duty at any given moment. 500 square miles, county, corner to corner in this county. And well, first I want to say, I have nothing but the most positive things to say about the deputies who patrol the unincorporated parts of our county. They do an incredible job. But 3 to 6 deputies to cover this whole county on any given moment, and half the population is living in Athens Township, there's no way you can deliver the quality or level of policing that people in that area deserve. And that's why we have some of these crime statistics that I want to talk about here tonight. Over the last 2 years, we've had 78 burglaries in the unincorporated parts of Athens Township, 101 counts of theft, 21 search warrants executed for drugs, 2 major drug busts in the Plains just this past year for crack cocaine and heroin. Now, I've spoken with the Athens County Sheriff's Department. The township has the option, if it wants to enter a contract with the sheriffs. We can have additional police services in these areas, and we have enough in our current general fund to afford this today without any additional income taxes or liabilities on anyone.
Thank you. Brian?
Yeah, back to the question, like Steve said, we've discussed this, and he answered it perfect. To the police thing, we have discussed this also. And to maintain what Eddie's saying, other things will suffer. I think we can probably do this for 2 to 3 years, add an additional officer. I think our roads will suffer, and then we'll have to add tax levies, more taxes, more taxes, more taxes. That's not what I want to do.
Thank you. I have 3 more questions in front of me, and one of which will be pretty short answer, so just to let you sort of focus your attention. So let's do those, and then we'll have the closing statements. And the order for this, Eddie, Brian, Steve. Does the township have the funds for bike lanes? If not, do you support an increase in taxes for bike lanes?
The township absolutely, unequivocally, undisputably has funds for putting in bike lanes. Our carry forward from 2016, and this applies to many other issues what we're talking about, our carry forward from 2016 was $1,281,984.66. Our carry forward rolling into this year was $1,188,916.33. We are rolling forward public funds that are sitting in an account doing nothing for the public that could be doing things like putting in bike lanes. And the majority of these funds, they're not unrestricted. They're encumbered. They have to be spent on road-related issues. And if we adopt a complete streets policy, we don't even have to use that many of them to start putting in bike lanes. ODOT will match, and right along the 682 corridor that we're talking about in the Plains and along Johnston and Connet, we can start having bike lanes and safe routes for everyone to get to and from work and school safely.
Thank you. Brian?
I don't think it's that we can afford it. I don't think it's safe. Our roads are not wide enough, and to make a safe lane would cost a ton of money. But to do it currently, to add a lane is not safe for a bicyclist. It's just not.
Okay, and Steve?
I think I made a statement there earlier about who should be approached for this. I can see the township, if there was a desire for that, being a cooperating partner with the county or with the state to develop bike lanes. But one thing I want to address too is there's some illusion here that the township's hoarding money, that we have a $1 million+ hidden bank account. We do carry over $1 million a year, but you need to understand that we don't have a disbursement of funds from the county auditor for the first 4 months of the year. And so we're working on carryover for those first 4 months. I just talked to our fiscal officer, and we need about $750,000 to carry us through the first part of that 4 months. So that's not like there's unencumbered $1 million sitting out there. It's something that's just kind of a pot of money that carries you over from year to year. You can take that money, that carryover money, especially if it was in the general fund, and spend it. Or if it was in a road fund, you could spend it. But what if you have an emergency? What if you have a hard winter and you need to buy additional salt? We have a slip on South Blackburn Road now. We don't know if the road's going to fall off or not. We'll have tens of thousands of dollars probably in that repair. We have 2 other bad slips too in subdivisions that we'll have to address. These are unplanned expenditures, and there's a need to have that reserved money, especially in the road fund. It'd be nice. The estate tax just went away not too long ago, 2013. That went to the general fund, and that really helped us out with a lot of discretionary spending and projects that would enhance quality of life. That money's gone now.
Thank you. Okay, this will be Brian, Steve, and Eddie. If elected, will you pledge to serve your full term?
Well, that's why I'm running. I mean, why would you go through this? Look at it. I am not a politician. This is miserable, but I'm learning. And to go through this, I am definitely serving my 4 years.
Thank you. Okay, and the next would be Steve.
I mentioned before that I chair the board of directors of United Seniors of Athens County. I've been a member of that board ever since the community center was constructed. Mayor Abel put it on me, that position, in my responsibility to help the transition from the senior facility on Kern Street over to the center. We got extra scoring points when we reaccredited nationally because I was a senior citizen. Like I said too, I'm on the board of directors for the Athens Village now. I'm not going to go anywhere either. This is the end of the trail for me. But I'm glad that there are organizations and activities and programs available to help people stay here. This is a hard spot to stay in, especially as you age. It's great for young people. I'd love to be able to ride a bike everywhere, and, jog and do all those kinds of things that I see people out there, younger people, doing every day. But there's another sector of the population too that needs to have attention paid to them, and they have needs that need to be addressed also.
Thank you. Eddie?
I think this question's aimed at me. So my fiance, the love of my life, Emily, recently moved up to Ann Arbor, Michigan. We are getting married in November. And this creates a conundrum. I see everyone's faces and the crowd changing. So Emily couldn't rank up in her position at Ohio University. She's a graphic designer. She applied for numerous promotions, and she couldn't go anywhere in that institution. She said she wanted to see if she could go to another institution to work her way up, and I said I would do everything I could to help her do that. So we worked hard on getting her a job at the #1 public university in the country, University of Michigan. She's happy up there, and she's doing great work, and this creates an issue for me. Where am I going to live? This is one of those sort of you lose-lose situations. If I end up supporting Emily in her role, I'm not an Athens loyalist. I'm not committed to this community. And if I'm committed to this community and loyal to Athens, I'm not being a good partner to her. So what I hope to do is to take this role on. I hope Athens shows me that they do want me to be here as a leader in this community. And if I get elected here, my goal is to stay here and to find a way to bring Emily back, to find another job for her in this community, another position that she can come back here. So that's.
Thank you. Here's our last question. It'll be Steve, Eddie, and Brian. Does Athens Township have too many miles of roads?
Eddie mentioned too about people in specialized things. I got to tell you, Ted Linscott, our president, and Brian are my road guys. They've been doing this. Brian does it for a living. Ted's been doing it. He does what's called our force account every year. And that's an estimation of the funds available and what kinds of road projects we can do in-house as opposed to contracting those out, where the expense then goes a lot higher. So Ted's really had a handle on that, and I know Brian appreciates it too, that he goes through all of that work to estimate what we can do in-house, making the most that we can with public dollars that we have for road maintenance. I think Brian, I think you told me the number is 56 miles. Is that too many? Not very many. Doesn't matter really how many we have. We're responsible to take care of them, no matter how many miles we have. This township is a little different too because we have a lot more miles, or percentage-wise, miles of paved roads opposed to chip and seal road, even more than the county, I believe. And so it's a whole different maintenance problem to maintain an asphalt road as it is the chip and seal road. So I'll stop with that. Obviously, I'm not a road guy. I'm into a lot of other things. Plowing snow, skitter off, and then that's about it.
Thank you, Steve. Eddie?
I again have no background in road maintenance or road engineering, and I'm glad to hear there are people on this board who know a lot about that. I will say, without that background, I believe the standard you would look for to determine whether the current 57 miles of township roads are worth continuing investing into and keeping paved would be to do a traffic study, would be to look at what are the miles traveled per day on those roads. To my knowledge, no studies like that have been conducted, and so we really have no standard to answer this question of do we have too many miles of township roads. So if I was elected and we were going to try to reduce the amount of money we were spending on township roads, it would be important to know which ones were most important and most traveled and which ones were not, so that we could maybe not have them paved anymore and turn them chip and seal or gravel.
Thank you. Brian?
I think Steve said it well. I mean, that's what we have, and I don't think it's too many. I mean, we take care of them very well, and we can manage.
Thank you. Well, I think it's time to turn to our closing statements. In the order will be Eddie, Brian, and Steve. And so 2-minute closing statements. Eddie, you're on.
I thank everyone who has stayed in the room for the last 2 hours. I'm very grateful to all of you for being here and wanting to learn about this race and about the issues that I am deeply passionate about trying to improve in Athens Township. I hope I've made a compelling case that township trustees can do an awful lot more than simply patch roads and mow cemeteries. We can address much larger issues. We have an incredible budget for doing it. And Steve's right, we do need carry forward to cover the 4 months before we receive funds from the county. But do we need $1.2 million? Can we use some of these funds for delivering public services and programs that we're responsible for supplying to people in our community when we have this level of budget? Again, I hope I've made a compelling case of that, and I hope if I am elected, I can start addressing some of these issues. Issues like rundown housing in our community and helping fund a land bank. Addressing issues like garbage franchises in our township and trying to help save customers money while being sustainable and supporting local garbage collectors who submit those bids. By addressing issues like crime and safety in our township, by using some of our excess general fund to fund the county sheriff's department to put a couple extra deputies out in the plains and in the rest of the township. And trying to address other issues like getting CDBG funds and other grant funding that does not come with any additional taxes on anyone in this township. Again, I hope I've made a compelling case that we can do an awful lot more than we are. I thank you all again for being here tonight, and I'd be honored if you elect me to be your next Athens Township Trustee. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. And Brian?
I guess the first thing I'd like to say is I'm not a politician. Pretty obvious. I go to work every day. This is the work I do. It's the work I enjoy. I have a lot to offer. This is a nonpartisan race. I'm not a politic. But I do know how to make your roads safe and smooth and paved and chip and sealed. That's what I do. With somebody like Steve, I've learned a lot in 2 years. And if I have another 4, I'll do good things. And I would appreciate your vote for trustee November 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Okay. I'd quickly like to say, I don't want anybody to think that crime is rampant on the plains. I mean, there's crime there, believe me. But the trustees have been working with Sheriff Smith to get a cooperative district formed where we can subcontract, not hire our own constable. We don't need 24-hour, well, the sheriff is up there quite a bit on the plains, to be honest with you, that we're already paying for. We only need a dedicated constable or sheriff on site at certain times, at the high crime areas, at night, on the weekends. So we're negotiating now with the county sheriff to do that. I just want everybody to know that that is high on our radar for that. So we're trying to do the best we can with the monies available. We could hire someone, we could spend a whole lot of money doing that, but we're trying to work in the budget that we have. One of the things that I've been able to do since I've been a trustee is address some of the things that Eddie's even talked about. Abandoned properties. I have a huge amount of experience dealing with abandoned properties and working with the county treasurer in having those kinds of things accomplished. I have a lot of history of applying for grants. Moving Ohio Forward grants, went through the county commissioners, had 10 houses demolished in Nelsonville. Flood mitigation grant through Nelsonville was actually an OEMA grant. So I know those grant opportunities, had 6 other houses demolished. So I've got a lot of experience doing that. I applied for a signed safety grant through the state of Ohio. Unfortunately, Lee Master Road is one of the highest accident roads in the whole state of Ohio. I was able to apply for a safety grant. We put signage up there. We have the same solar-powered traffic, MPH, miles per hour signs that the county has. So we have been doing those kinds of things. I've gotten a hold of people to get their grass cut, to clean up their property. I work with the health. I've known the guys at the health department for over 20 years. I have a great working relationship with the county health department. So those are the kinds of things that I'm involved in now. I've had 4 years of doing it. I've got some programs up and running. I'd like to continue doing that with the support of the voters of the township. Thank you.
Thank you all. And so this brings us to the end of our program, and I certainly want to thank you candidates for your thoughtful, hard work this evening and illuminating things for us. And I want to thank the Athens County Public Libraries and the League of Women Voters. Is that Todd sitting over there? So stand up and let us thank you. He's the key person in making these things happen.